Jennifer Negon, thanks for being with us. Jennifer, how did you feel watching Sol Mamakwa speaking Oji-Cree, the first Indigenous language to ever be officially spoken at Queen's Park?
I thought it was really powerful. I think this really shows us that, the bridge between Indigenous people existing in politics is starting to widen. And we're starting to have those conversations around these, typical colonial systems that are now not being infiltrated, but our people are representing themselves. And I thought it was really strong how he said that, he almost felt that he couldn't shake the fact that he thought he should continue speaking in English because he thought he was doing something wrong. But really what he was doing was paving the way for so many Indigenous people behind him, especially our youth, to feel comfortable embracing their own language and potentially getting elected one day and feeling comfortable being in these spots.
Negon, your thoughts on this historic speech and the reaction from those in the Ontario legislature as well?
Yeah, what impacted me the most is his mentor and supporter, Barb Nolan, longtime Anishinaabe speaker, has spent decades just tirelessly working for pennies, if not for free, to save the language amongst our people. And to hear her, the proudness that she had in the speech immediately following was just remarkable, very heartwarming. The one thing that I would say is that, this is something that the infrastructure really had to come up quickly, and they had to make sure that there was supports to be able to enable this speech to take place and for it to be translated, which kind of reminds you of the problems with some of the legislation involving Indigenous languages, particularly C91, in that there's a real funding gap issue in that while it's nice to say, oh, Indigenous people should get services, should be able to deliver speeches, should be able to access government resources in our languages, the infrastructure really isn't there. And it takes a real heavy lifting, a lot of people to be able to do this. I myself have been in courts in which elders have given testimony, and then all that's given at the very end in the transcript, because they don't have transcribers or translators, is spoken in Ojibwe. Meanwhile, remarkable teachings were given in that courtroom in that day. And I think that may be something that in the future people would want to think very deeply about when we incorporate languages. But at the same time, it's a really important moment, and I don't want to take away from what Jennifer said, which is it always takes a first. When a first walks in a room, which is people like our generation, our parents' generation, those of us, Jennifer and I, are still in many ways the first. Our job is to open up that space for those who are coming behind us, and we have always done that as Indigenous peoples for our young people. And I'm very proud to say that it's seeing it today.
Jennifer, we have seen some others speak their language, particularly in the House of Commons. Robert Falcon-Ouellette in 2019. Romeo Saganash had said it should be a right. Do you think that this might have an impact on those that are looking to run for public office?
I think it will. You still have a lot of Indigenous people across Turtle Island that aren't, super supportive of our people running in those institutions because they feel that it undermines their sovereignty. And I'm in 100% in support of the people that feel that way. But if our people do want to get involved, whether it be federally, provincially, municipally, we need to make sure that we are doing what we can for that inclusion piece to make sure that our people feel comfortable being in those spaces. If you grew up speaking Cree or you grew up speaking Michif or whatever it might be, maybe that's how you best communicate. And maybe English is your second language, but you're, a Dene speaker from Northern Saskatchewan that wants to enter politics. We need to make sure that we're leaving as much inclusion open as possible for our people to enter those spaces and feel comfortable speaking to their issues in their own language, because they're not just speaking to the English and French Canadians, but they're also speaking and representing their own people as well.
And Negon, you mentioned the court system. Mamakwa called on other jurisdictions to start doing this as well. Do you think we'll see more, and what should be and could be done to incorporate Indigenous languages and practices into the halls of colonial powers?
Probably the best example is international forums where You go to the United Nations, for example, or you have a committee meeting from an international summit, and you'll have kind of a wall of translators in which people are working in different languages. And think about South Africa. South Africa has 23 official languages, but they're regionally recognized. In Canada, we only have one non-European language that's recognized. It's Inuktitut in the Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And so as a result, you have to offer that service. You have to offer that consistent translation, so presence and access to that within government services translations. So what we're looking at is probably a regional representation within Canada, the different aspects. So, for example, Anishinaabe Cree, Anisinu or Oji-Cree here in Manitoba, maybe even Dakota, Lakota, Nakota. The fact is that regionally you need to be able to offer those supports. What does that look like? It looks like resources, time, energy, and commitment, which is something I think if there's anything that we know only comes from lobbying, reminding, and then also making sure that Bill C-91, the Indigenous Languages Act, that says that Indigenous language is a right, that is actually enforced and that it actually has energy and time put in it. And I'll just add one more thing to what Jennifer said, that for us to encourage more Indigenous participation within the political economy of this country, all of these big strides that have been made with the Liberals, there have been some important strides, C-15 particularly, Indigenous rights coming in concert with other Canadian law. Those can be easily removed by government, easily. C-91, C-92, child welfare legislation. When Indigenous peoples get involved in Parliament, speaking our languages, advocating for our own perspectives, this is the way that we make sure that those laws stay on the books and make sure that they are advocated for. It's absolutely a good argument to say that we are sovereign nations, but we're also in partnership with Canada. And so making sure that these big strides are not just simply reversed by the next government that comes in.
Niga and Jennifer, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Yeah, miigwech, thanks.